consultants, leading you to profitability or leading you to bankruptcy. We'll show you how you can better ensure that smart consultants don't destroy a smart company. And a side benefit of all of this is that these tools should actually help make everyone in your organization happier, faster, and more productive, which should help drive profitable growth. I'm not going to read all of these slides verbatim. I am, however, going to make it easier for you to pause this video if you want to read additional details. Why is any of this an issue? Because every year consulting firms deliver thousands of brilliant PowerPoints, but too often those recommendations are made in a vacuum. And when that happens, some of the smartest advice can do the most damage. For example, at Sears, consultants urged the company to optimize for cost savings, but those cost savings eroded the value proposition for customers. And at Boeing, consultants encouraged Boeing to shift focus from engineering excellence to financial optimization, and when finance outweighs the fundamentals, trust collapses. At Enron, a large consulting firm encouraged exotic financial instruments to maximize returns. And that kind of complexity without a conscience or legality always finds a breaking point, and some people went to jail. To really drive the point home, here are 12 more examples. There's Kodak that missed the digital camera revolution and filed Chapter 11 in 2012 because they were encouraged to double down on film chemistry and treat digital as a side project. Swiss Air was advised to buy stakes in 20-plus airlines. The end result was a fleet that was grounded in 2001 due to a liquidity crisis where 39,000 passengers were stranded. General Electric was advised to build GE Capital into a too-big-to-fail bank. The net result was $50 billion bailout in 2008 and a stock that was down 80% in 20 years. Thanks to expert advice, AT&T had to take a $20 billion write-down in 2002 and spun off a lot of their business. Deutsche Bank had $18 billion in fines since 2008 and their share price dropped by 90%. Abbott Labs was advised to spin off AbbVie to unlock value. The net result was a 70% drop in profit by 2025. And the advice of consultants helped Pacific Gas and Electric realize a $30 billion bankruptcy. And in 2012, Hewlett-Packard had to take an $8.8 billion fraud write-down. And in 2008, the Royal Bank of Scotland had to take a UK taxpayer bailout of £45 billion. In 2018, Toys R Us was liquidated. In 1988, Revco drugstores had their first leveraged buyout bankruptcy. And Mattel, after buying the Learning Company for $3.5 billion, sold it 18 months later for $27 million. What can we learn from all this? One of the things that we can learn is that there are at least 7 deadly patterns that can lead to ruin. You can hit pause to see the details, but their headings are the one big bet syndrome, financial engineering masquerading as strategy, ignoring the core customer for 3 to 5 years, outsourcing accountability, having zero skin in the game for the advisors, and metrics that lie. And this last one is a big one, board and CEO groupthink. In all of these examples, the same 3 firms sat in every boardroom for a decade, echoing one another until dissent sounded like disloyalty. That's a huge problem. Another high-level learning we can take away from this is that bad things are typically not a failure of intelligence, but a failure caused by intellectual isolation. On the other hand, good things are more likely to occur when everyone can see the connections and not just the compartments. What this means to you is that if you're retaining a consultant, you need to make sure that you see the connections so that way you know that your consultants see the connections and that their recommendations are rooted in the ecosystem as a whole and not just in a single slice of it. Here's a good visual metaphor for what it is that we're talking about. Understanding the connections. On the left, you'll see text labels, some graphics, some bar charts. On the right are those exact same elements, but this is the way that Walmart understands it, as a connected whole. So if you need to quickly get from Dempster to Midway, which way of thinking actually drives better results? With Sears, they never had an idea. At Walmart, they'd be able to say easy peasy. You take the yellow line to the red line to the orange line. The difference makes a huge difference. A quick recap as to why integrated thinking is far superior to siloed thinking. Siloed thinking maximizes parts at the expense of the whole. Integrated thinking maximizes the whole, which strengthens every part. And regarding how integrated thinking is far superior to siloed thinking, it helps with enterprise alignment, superior customer experience. It's an innovation powerhouse. It helps improve efficiency and profitability, and it helps future-proof the organization. There's really hardly anything it can't do. Again, the difference makes a huge difference. Making all of this operational is relatively easy. The good news is that seeing the connections can be quick, easy, and cheap. It's really just using things that you already know and just putting them together. And putting it all together is easy when you learn best practices from others. What I learned from Walmart is that good business is fundamentally about three things. First, it's about understanding the flow of the customer's experiences. Second, it's understanding the flow of business. And then third, and really importantly, it's understanding how all of your decisions and actions impact those two flows. That's it. And as an added bonus, this whole process helps make it easier for everyone to be happier, faster, and more productive. In workshops, this is a fun way we get everyone to understand this more intuitively. We take 3 groups of people and have them each assemble the exact same jigsaw puzzle. The first group with the puzzle pieces face down, the second group with the puzzle pieces face up, and the third group with the puzzle pieces face up and with a copy of the puzzle box lid. Who's going to be happier, faster, more productive? The group with the puzzle box lid. Do you know what your puzzle box lid looks like? And it's easier to evaluate the recommendations of consultants if you can do it within the context of your puzzle box lid. This next part is a quick base level understanding of integrated thinking. A key thing to remember is that the flow of the customer experience is actually where the company gets its revenue from, so it's critically important. And this flow is essentially in the middle of the business flow. Things happen before it and things happen after it, but the customer flow is in the middle. The customer experience flow goes from the customer's head from them to learn about you, their smile to like you, to their hands or feet to do something, to their heart for loyalty, winning over the whole customer. And this path from the customer's head to their hearts fits within the larger flow of the business. This is what it looks like when you fill in the blanks of the base level of integrated thinking. Again, on the YouTube channel, it really highlights that it's a 4-step process. With what you're given, what do you do about it, what are the results, and how successful were you? But you can see some of the blanks filled in here. And regarding filling in the blanks, at workshops, we've used this Mad Lib-like structure to fill in the blanks regarding both the customer flow and the business flow. I've seen people generate superior strategies in under a half an hour just by using the things that they already know. The real trick is putting them all together. Once you understand the flow of your customer experiences and the flow of your business, you then understand a lot more about your business. So when you get recommendations from consultants, you can go ahead and better understand whether they make sense or not. We'll use Sears as an example as to how this really works. You can hit pause to see more of the details within this, but fundamentally what you do is you take the generic flow of the customer experience and the flow of the business, and then you start laying over the series of dots regarding where the company's been and where it's going to. By going through this exercise, you can see how Sears started strong, but then put itself on the road to ruin. Each dot that you add to the flows gives you a higher resolution picture of what is going on in your business. As you follow these dots in the story, you can see that Ultimately, Sears, once a dominant American retailer, entered a downward spiral that led to bankruptcy and the erosion of its legacy. And the sad part is, this didn't need to happen. Before we put all the dots together for Sears to better understand the story, here's something useful to think about. Life, data, business, everything is like a Seurat oil painting. It's nothing but a series of dots. But if you know how all the dots fit together and stand back, you can see the larger picture. The water, the park, the woman with the parasol, and for some reason that monkey she brings with her everywhere. So when you put all the dots together for Sears, it's easier for you to see the story. Sears started off with the goal of better improving profitability to boost shareholder value. However, they made an awful lot of these decisions within a vacuum. They didn't understand the connections. And what happened was they wound up eroding the value that they provided to the customers. The customers then felt this value eroding and fled Sears. They were effectively slowly starving the geese that laid the golden eggs, and then they wondered how it is that they ran the company into the ground. Sadly enough, this is a pretty familiar pattern in business. What was particularly sad about watching what happened to Sears is that Sears was Amazon before Amazon was Amazon. Orders were placed remotely and then merchandise was shipped. Sears thought about their business as a series of silos, as opposed to an integrated systems-based thinking, and as a result, Sears would brag about how strong their arms were while their legs atrophied. Amazon, on the other hand, as well as Walmart, they do a much better job at ensuring the health of the system as a whole and not just the individual parts in a vacuum. And the end result of all of this is that Amazon and Walmart move like a large swarm of piranhas, while Sears could only move like a single shark. And the difference makes a difference. In the mapping model shown earlier, there was a star in the lower right-hand corner, and that star represents where you should be driving the company given all the other pieces of the model. Here's a useful way to go ahead and think about this. The customer is like one handrail of a boat, and the company is like the other handrail of the boat. Running from handrail to handrail just rocks the boat. What you really need is a star off on the horizon to drive both handrails to. That star helps inform and guide absolutely everything that it is that you do. So many consultants, on the other hand, are really proud of KPIs and scorecards and dashboards. But when you've got all of this data, can you understand without the flows if one number is supposed to be 5 times higher than the others, or how the numbers even relate to each other, or how you even prioritize any of this? And the answer most of the time is no. That's why it's important to understand that good business is about those 3 things. The flow of the customer experience, the flow of the business, and understanding how all of your decisions and actions impact those 2 flows. When we do the puzzle box lid exercise in workshops, we typically ask a series of follow-up questions. 1. Do you know what your puzzle box lid looks like? The answer most of the time is no. Second question, do your competitors know what their puzzle box lid looks like? The answer there is typically, a few of them probably do. The third question is, do your competitors know what your puzzle box lid looks like better than you do? And this usually puts a little bit of fear into the audience, because a lot of them believe that they probably do. And then the final question is, do your consultants know what your puzzle box lid looks like? And if they do understand what it looks like, do they use it to go ahead and communicate to you what their recommendations are? Because recommendations formulated and made within a vacuum could wind up hurting the company a lot more than helping the company. In working with others, this is something that we've seen time and time again. You can have the best people, the best processes, and the best data and still fail or fail to thrive if the company doesn't know how all the pieces fit together. So many companies are moving along like a duck in an oil spill, technically alive and technically moving forward, but it's really not fun for anyone. So how do you apply all of this? What are the next steps? The good news is organizing your thinking is free, and a lot of times it's pretty easy. Although help is available to jumpstart the process if you like, I'm more than happy to help. And please send me a link to connect on LinkedIn. I'm a business geek and I love going ahead and connecting with others who actually are interested in integrated thinking. It just makes everything better. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of the video. And it would mean a lot if you liked, subscribed, shared this with others, particularly family members at the holidays. It just makes everything better. Thanks.